Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live. We're here for another fun week of chatting here with you guys about the Pac-12 here on the Voice of College Football channel. Now, one of our main goals tonight is we want to chat with you guys about what's going on in the Pac-12. And there's a couple ways that we can do that. First of all, if you are live and watching us, we want you to call in. So in a little bit, we're going to put the link up, and it's really easy. It's a Streamyard link. You can use it from your phone or from your computer and call in, and let's chat and hear what you have to say. It's been a big week for the conference. Second, you can engage in our chat. Or third, you can just directly tweet at us. And if you're watching the show afterwards, what you can always do is leave a comment down below, or like we said, shoot us a note on Twitter, or even better, join us next week. So let's get the gang all here. We've got Tim and Chris. LBC is being dad tonight, which is pretty exciting. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Like I said, we want you guys to call into the show, but we've got a couple of just real basic, simple things for folks. And this is whether you call in or whether you're in the chat. Everybody be constructive, interesting, add value, and then really simply just don't be a jerk and keep it related to the Pac. So no personal attacks on guests, callers, or chatters. No incessant, worthless, or negative trolling. If you keep doing that, we will just bounce you out of the chat for the night. It'll be real easy. No derogatory or discriminatory nonsense. And do not harass, whine, or challenge our moderator team. If you are whining to our moderators, they will just time you out or bounce you out. Again, we're here for everybody to have a good time and everybody to chat. And if your goal is to just be a pain in the ass troll, you're in the wrong place and you should go watch something else. But if you're here to chat about the Pac-12, we're excited to have you guys. So Tim and Chris, first of all, what do you guys think about the big week this week in the conference?
Go ahead, Tim.
Tim, you're muted.
We talking recruiting here, or what? What about the big week?
We got all kinds of stuff. We had recruiting. We had a lot of adventures. We've had bowl games. We had a very nice bowl win for Oregon State.
Yeah, shout out to the Beavs for that 10-win season. I don't know if Connor's in yet or if he's making dinner.
Yeah, it's Connor. Are you making dinner? Or are you out there, Connor?
If I see him in the chat now, then I'll have to give him. If I don't see him in the chat now, I'll have to give them props later. But the 10-win dream from the beginning of the season, it took one extra than I wanted it to, but the Beavs, that's a heck of a season, and congrats to the Beavs for getting to 10 wins. That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm so sorry, Tony. Yeah, this week keeps on rolling. It feels like a year ago that Oregon State just absolutely embarrassed
Florida
in that game, just kind of just showing again that that maybe some conferences aren't as powerful as they think. Oh, and you could talk about the fact they had 5 opt-outs to 1 opt-out for the Beavers, but let's face it, anyone watched that game realized that having the number 11 passing rated quarterback in the conference in the game probably wasn't going to make that much of a difference. It was an absolute ass beating. So good job to the Beavs.
Florida did kick a meaningless field goal, so that's cool.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your guys' take on that? So Florida had, of course, their long streak of no shutouts, and at the very last second, did they just cowardly kick a field goal, or was it worth it to keep the shutout alive? Keep the streak alive?
You want me to be okay? So I think it was crap, but do you want me to be honest? If I'm an embattled first-year coach from the Sun Belt,
yeah, I don't want that on my resume. I don't want to be that guy.
Sports Center with that byline saying first, shutout says 86 or 87 or 89, where the hell it was. So yeah, I mean, I get why he did it. I also get why he did it as a program reason, because 5 years from now, people will forget about this field goal, but they'll still have that streak probably going. Congratulations to the Beavs though for really sticking it to him, playing great defense. I've been saying it's about the defense, the Oregon State defense all year. I've been saying Utah and Oregon State, these are legit defenses, and I get it. They're missing an offensive lineman. They didn't have their quarterback in the game, and that would have made a difference. But they just stifled them. I mean, this is a secondary that gave a lot of really high-powered passing teams in the Pac-12 a hell of a lot of fits. So well done to support and represent Beavs. Good job.
And shall we get into the game of the week?
Let's do
So
it.
there's another Pac-12 bowl game this week. We've got the Holiday Bowl before our next show, and we'll have, of course, more bowls coming up after our next show. But one more bowl game before our next show, and that is Oregon and North Carolina in San Diego, which, despite having a beautiful new football stadium, is played in a baseball stadium. It's an awesome baseball stadium. It has a great wine bar, amazing food. I love Petco Park, but why are we not playing in a football stadium? Guys, what do you think? We got the Ducks and the Tar Heels. Drake May and Bo Nix. What are we looking at in this game?
So despite the fact that like UCLA didn't go last year, the Holiday Bowl is like a pretty great bowl game. I think it's like pretty underrated. I mean, maybe people realize how good it is. I think it's a great bowl game, and I think the Alamo Bowl is a great bowl game. But yeah, like you said, Bo Nix versus May, and like in a bowl season where, you know, everyone's always worried about like who's playing, who's not. You have still two like really good quarterbacks going at it and two really good offenses. Yeah, in a game that people probably expect there to be a million points in. I'm personally not as jaded by the Ducks, end of season, since I missed most of the late season while I was out of the country. And, you know, even having lost two of their last three, North Carolina lost its last three games. I'm forever going to dislike Mac Brown. Cal doesn't forget. Cal never forgets. Oski doesn't forget. I hope that Mac Brown, when he's retired and on his deathbed, which I hope is not anytime soon. I don't hate him that much, but when it happens, I want him to just be haunted by Oski's face. And then I want that. I mean, it probably won't, but
I think we may have to make a cartoon of this graphic.
So yeah,
Mac Brown wakes up to Oski like over his bed. I may have to Photoshop this together.
Beyond that, I talked to do a plug real quick in the Patreon, which, you know, people should join if they aren't joined to the Discord server. I talked to Eric to ask him, just because, you know, there's so much like talk of like the transfer portal and people sitting out, not sitting out. And Oregon has had quite a bit of people transfer out. Eric's take, and he would know the roster better than me, is that Gonzalez is the only one, is like their corner who's going to do declared for the NFL draft, is the only one that he's really like, oh, that's a serious loss for this game. But beyond that, I mean, there are guys that are missing that might have contributed at some point in the year and whatnot, but it doesn't seem like there's like a giant concern on that side. And then lastly, like, I know people say that a lot of the Pac-12 defenses are bad, but North Carolina's defense, like according to Football Outsiders, is worse than everyone in the conference besides Arizona. So this is a situation where even though UNC can move the ball and they might have some success throwing it throwing it against Oregon, and they might score some points, I think Oregon stops them enough, and actually I think they crush by the time it's all said and done. And the Ducks become the second team in Oregon to win 10 this season. And for our little fun confidence thing, Tim, I have this one as my 6.
Oh man. Okay. Well, let's get that out of the way. So yeah, I also I'm taking the Ducks, and I also have them at 6. So I think this game is going to be a situation with defense, because I like to get on the Ducks a lot about their defense, especially their pass defense. But they're looking better. All right. I mean, but they're not going to get guys like they got a great recruiting class coming in. By the way, we haven't seen it. Dalen Austin's a local guy that they're picking up. He's a corner. And they just got a huge pickup today, Peyton Bowen, 5-star safety. But those guys obviously won't be playing in this bowl game. So I think there will be a lot of yards put up. slightly better the defense as far as scoring defense goes for the Ducks. I think this will be a good game. You know what I mean? I think it'll stay close early, but I just think that Oregon will, with a healthy Nix and that offensive line, I think we'll have a great day. So just painfully go ahead, give the Ducks the win.
I think Ducks are going to roll in this one. North Carolina's defense is just generationally bad. And with Bo Nix sticking around, I think that Oregon's going to look good. I think Oregon's hungry. I think they got embarrassed by Oregon State. I think that they're going to use this game as a comeuppance and give the Pac-12 its second win of the bowl season. And just real quick, guys, the Pac-12 until the Florida annihilation in Vegas had not won a bowl game in 2 years. That streak is over.
When we were talking about it, sorry, Tony.
Go ahead.
Well, no, when we were talking about, earlier, like the one thing in this game, and I know that teams evolve and get better, but that Chiswick defense that we saw that made Drew Pine look like Joe Montana, you know what I mean? Just watching that happen, I really do believe that.
I'm sorry, do you mean Arizona State quarterback Drew Pine?
Yeah, right. Well, the used to be Notre Dame quarterback in that game just absolutely looked unstoppable against that defense. I mean, it was really everyone was writing off Notre Dame until they met that gift of a defense that Chiswick gave them, and I just think that Oregon's offense is just insanely better than that, and I do think that their defense up front got better as the year went on, but I still think that the secondary is questionable, right? And with May throwing the ball around, that might get a little bit dicey early, but I just think that in the end, the Ducks just have too much firepower, and they're just gonna roll right over that secondary and their defense.
And while we're looking back on last week's bowl games, let's talk real briefly about Fresno State and Jake Haener, who did what Jake Haener does in LA and rolled in and just steamrolled past the Cougs. What did you guys think about that game?
I mean, we
watched it.
No, I watched it.
I was in Madison Square.
That's right. You were busy. You were in Madison Square Garden watching UCLA have a
watching some
basketball.
Day. But no, I have some thoughts about it. I'll let Tim go first.
Well, I just really want to reiterate the fact that a lot of people wrote off Fresno State and talking about when they lost to UConn and they went on that losing skid. But people have to remember that quarterbacks are pretty important to a team. And Haener is not just some quarterback. We saw him last year ball out. We saw him this year. Matter of fact, USC, he was keeping Fresno State early on in that USC game. He was, keeping them in the game. It didn't look like they were going to win it with him, but he was keeping them in the game against USC. And when he went down at the half, that was it. They just folded. And we saw the team they were with him in that USC game. And we saw the Fresno State team without him in that USC game. And as soon as he came back,
as a Trojan, I'm kind of glad we didn't have to have him the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to oversell Fresno State because for who they are.
It is what it is.
It just shows you though you have to go 7 deep into the Pac-12, right? And we lost that game. I think all of us picked that loss too. I think we kind of saw that coming with a healthy Haener and a hot team.
Yeah, we did.
But Washington State had a great turn. They got a good solid foundation there. Unfortunately, we saw that they lost both their coordinators right before the game. That doesn't ever help, right? They lost one linebacker to the portal and one opt out. Basically their two best guys on defense. And the writing was on the wall. It would have been interesting again. We'll probably never see it in bowl games where you have guys not opting out to see a healthy squad. I mean, who knows if they have both their coordinators, right? And their linebacking crew intact, maybe they win that game, who knows, right? But it was all credit to Fresno State. I won't take anything away from them. And again, J.K. and just Haener, just an amazing player.
Yeah,
he really is. And he deserved it, I thought.
Yeah, real quick, I don't care who you are. A 10-win season is pretty damn good. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's happened before, but I can't imagine it has. This Fresno State team started 1-4. And they won 10 games.
First team to ever do that.
Okay, they are the first. Yeah, no, that's incredible. that like, and that's after losing to Oregon State by 3 and UConn by 5. Like, that's a pretty dang good team. Like, we can talk about the Mountain West versus like other teams or like other conferences or whatever, but like, no, they had a heck of a year. And yeah, if Jake Haener doesn't get hurt, maybe they win 11 or 12. Like, it's incredible. Yeah, no, Fresno State should be pretty dang proud of the season they did, especially with the way it started. That's like something to hang your hat on, in my opinion.
I agree. Jeff Tedford striking back to the Pac-12. Well, guys, another big thing happened today that we want to talk about, and that is early signing day. So it was a bit of a wild day. And there's another conference in the Southern Plains that, had a lot of nonsense to say and was a little surprised when some of their players ended up in the Pac-12. Notre Dame was a little surprised to have some of their players end up in the Pac-12. Certainly a great day in Eugene, a good day in LA. Guys, what did you think about early signing day today?
Before we start, I saw a tweet today, and I apologize to the mystery tweeter who I don't have it in front of me, but I have the quote, and it's a reminder for everyone that the 5-star player that your team lost is because your team's rival paid him $15 million. But that 5-star player that committed to your team and flipped at the last second to your school did so because he doesn't do it for the money, and he appreciates the spirit of amateurism, and he's like, a solid guy, very classy individual that just, understands what your institution's about.
Yeah.
Now that's been said.
No, I mean, I'm with you. And sometimes we fall, like I remember last year, I forgot the guy's name now even, but I'm sure he'll be a good offensive lineman for the Ducks. But it happens, right? We want these presents. So it's like when you're a little kid and you wanted that video game, your parents got you the one on sale, right? Something like that. It's like, you don't get your reality doesn't meet your expectations. You're always going to have those fans who are going to flip out, start blaming this, blaming that, say they have bad parents or this, whatever, or maybe a couple of things. We do have to agree that NIL, that's a part of recruiting now. That is part of the package. But a lot of these kids grow up wanting to go to a certain school. Like, it's a big thing about Mateo Uyunglele, right? He decided to go to Oregon, and there was big talk early on that it was USC. Then it flipped over to Ohio State about a year ago or so. It was all Ohio State. That was Ohio State and Oregon, and USC's looking in, kind of looking through the back window. And then late in the game, it's all USC, and then all of a sudden Oregon comes and steals it. Or is it the fact that, let's forget the money part of it, because I think Ohio State, USC, and Oregon all have money to throw around. Or is it the fact that maybe this kid grew up an Oregon fan? Maybe his whole life he wanted to be a Duck, and he sees a great opportunity with Lanning and decides to go to the Ducks. As painful as that is to say as a Trojan, you have to realize out there, you guys, that no matter how much you think your school's the greatest, not everybody does, and a lot of these kids that do these head scratcher moves, there's a lot to it. Maybe a favorite uncle, right, sat down and watched games with them. Who knows the stories by these kids? But to say it's all money when they go somewhere else and that they came to your school for the rich tradition and greatness, like Chris said, I think it's a bit crazy. I think it's really just crazy talk.
Speaking of a head scratcher move, by the way, and not to throw too much shade to the Oskies in the chat, but and this wasn't like a no, not that one. We can get to that, but the head scratching one is Cardwell, the running back from Oregon, who I know a number of schools were interested in, including UCLA, decided to transfer to Cal. And in and of itself, that's like fine. And that's one where it very well might be for the institution and nothing else. But yeah, no, it's crazy, Alex, because like he's there, like Ott is right there, right?
Not, I mean, he's a freshman,
and Ott has, I mean, who knows what happens in the future, right? But Ott has been like hosting visits and like, seems pretty bought into sticking it out at Cal. So it's not like this is like a replacement. So like that one was pretty interesting. And since we're on this subject of Cal, they did have Plummer. It looks like he's transferring out today. I read, so many things are rumors, so who knows? They might lose another quarterback to the transfer portal. Their signing class, I mean, they got the Cardwell transfer, which is great, but that's like at a position which might be their best position.
You have other holes.
They have other holes, and their class overall wasn't spectacular. So yeah, that they might have to hand the ball off, between Ott and Cardwell and everybody else. Maybe they can find a couple linemen and hand the ball off 80 times a game. But it seems like there's going to be some struggle for talent there, which I think, I mean, people know that like I'm kind of a Cal guy. I really do think Wilcox is a great coach, but at some point, and the problem is they don't have the money to like flip things around when and if they do bring someone else in. But like at some point, even if you think a guy is a good coach, right? Like you just need a different face to sell something.
On this note, we're breaking protocol. We have Alex Raya from Cal waiting in the chat.
Before Alex comes in, remember they do have money. They have the calamony coming, so be careful.
There is calamony coming.
That's going straight
to the NIL fund.
That's going straight into paying the interest off on their stadium.
Yeah. And or as UC Regent Gumby has reminded us, friend of the show, UC Regent Gumby has been reminding us, it's overdue licensing royalties on the fight song.
And the colors.
And the colors and the mascot.
And we can have a whole video on that. Yeah.
Alex, first of all, Plummer taken off. What do we even make of that? I didn't even know how to make of that.
It's kind of a minor loss at this point. I mean, and this is going to sound a bit hyperbole, but I think we may have one of the best skill groups in the conference. Like, you've kind of seen it in flashes. Like, we have some decent receivers. We're now stacked a running back. That's new. But Plummer is kind of a wash, sort of, where later in the season he had some injuries, but he would, like, in big game, he threw two of the worst interceptions I have ever seen. And so, he was able to sling it a bit, but it's kind of with all the skill guys coming in and Milner, who really showed some promise against Oregon, and we hope he stays, but there may be something in the pipeline, because it is surprising that happens today, right? That Plummer decides
and here's a question for you. Are they going to have some of those national champion water polo guys come in and throw the ball, or what are they going to do?
I mean, some of those guys are big. We have a few 6'7" guys who can, they can get down to the pool, maybe put in cleats and pads. Yeah.
Although I think when you reach in and grab someone's nether regions and twist in football, you're more likely to get a flag than in water polo.
Yeah. And I mean, I actually was a year-round swimmer water polo player growing up. Of course, I didn't have the caliber whatsoever to, if I had shown here's what's interesting about Cal water polo in general is that they have open tryouts, and I didn't know this, like, because I swam, right? And swimming is obviously like there's a lot of gatekeeping. It's, I would have shown up and they said, yeah, here's the schedule for, rec hours, have fun. But water polo, some guys have told me that's some terrible, like, you can try out and then, you go on your way. But I didn't know that until somebody told me, because I actually had a friend who did try out and make the team and actually played in some varsity games. Back in 2006 when they won the national championship. So, but anyway, but yeah, quarterback now is kind of like, if Milner leaves, and I think, it's his job now. If Milner wants it, it's his. So it's kind of like who wants to work with the skill guys coming in, and and I'm very high on Spav. Like in 2016, I think that was our best offense under Dykes, and that was done with a transfer quarterback that year as well. So I think Spav can really turn this around very quickly. And I wouldn't say Spav was a dream hire. Like a dream hire would have been like something crazy like a Joe Brady or something. But in regards to what we could reach for, I was very happy that Wilcox was able to bring him back, and they're pulling in some guys now. And if Spav can have his way with how he likes to run things, I think we can really like crank this thing.
Now
going into next
Sonny
year.
Dykes was a really bad coach at Cal. Has he gone on to do anything else of interest?
I don't know. I think he's in a bowl game or something this year. Finally, he hasn't
Okay.
been in one in a while, but I can talk on Dykes for.
I think he stole Coach of the Year from Willie Fritz. We can get more into that next week, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think next week is going to be Chris's Willie Fritz adulation fest.
I gotta give a quick shout out to UC Regent Gumby's profile picture, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, UC Regent Gumby has the best profile picture. I don't think I have a way to blow it up.
And then Alex, I don't know if you have anything else to add about Cal signing day or recruiting or the team in general, but real quick, I wanted to congratulate you. I don't know if you saw today or watched it. I actually did have it on the TV. There was a big win for the Cal Golden Bears over the Texas Arlington Mavericks. Beat them 73-51 at home to improve the basketball record to 1-12 on the year.
And not that I, was even paying attention. Well, first of all, I'm so, like I legit thought that we were going to go for a glorious winless season on the hard court. But
the Keno, though, can we make it totally winless?
Well, the ghost of Jason Kidd was not going to let that happen. So that's all I'm going to say.
And there's more on athletic department in general stuff in Berkeley that I can discuss that relates to that, but I won't get into that right this second. I mean, more on but at least on the gridiron anyway, I'm more optimistic than I thought I would be at this point. But as Gumby was mentioning, there were no linemen signed, at least in this cycle. And I mean, you can't have a skill group do anything without linemen. We saw what that looked like last year. So we better pull a few
USC saw what that looked like in the championship game.
Yeah, we better get some unless Milner's pretty mobile, so he could work with a line that breaks down and get the ball out to some guys. But yeah, that's and at least the coaching will be better. But other than that, we don't get in a few more guys, the personnel, because even I saw us against SC. We had one of our tackles or guards. He's this big dude, 6'7", 310, and whoever was playing against him, opposite him, he just threw him aside like nothing. I was like, how is a 6'7", 310 you're just being obliterated? Even if that other guy's a 4 or 5 SC guy, come on, we needed, that we better see some guys come in, or all these skill guys may not be for now, especially with the running backs. I mean, that's unless we were going to do something crazy with that, but we'll see. But with Spav, I'm positive we'll have something to show next year. And I can't really say this, very often, but when a team like Auburn comes in for your home opener, that's going to be something.
Yeah, that's going to be real interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, the Berkeley Bears. So tell me, Alex, do we feel good about today for Cal, or are we, given where you were this morning, how do you feel at the end of the day?
We got a transfer from Clemson. Anytime that happens, you're feeling good about the other guys coming in. So we got, good running back signings. None of our good receivers have left. And so in terms of the guys who kind of have departed, and was
that because he did not have the same view of name, image, and likeness that Dabo had?
I think so. On that in particular,
or is that too soon? I think it's probably too soon. It's too soon for that.
Like Dabo. So we're kind of seeing I mean, now it's a full-blown revolution in football. Guys you thought who would stick it out, like Gary Patterson, the way that he crashed out of TCU and then Dykes took over. There are some coaches that are going to use NIL and the transfer portal and those levers in certain ways that other coaches just aren't accustomed to. And Dabo, maybe like, because Dabo before, like, he never liked the idea of NIL or guys who would just, go in and out of programs. And so I don't know what Dabo may just be hanging on for dear life at this point. I think that was a goofy, just like, what is he thinking? I found that was surprising.
I
I think
honestly thought
Dabo
it was,
is not liking what's going on right now.
I thought it was a parody, like a fake quote, until I saw the video, and then I was like, oh,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
Dabo.
we'll see how long that lasts at Clemson. So, yeah, they may be on their way out. Who knows?
Yeah, Uncle Rico nails it. Dabo's been waiting to use that line forever. Anyway, sorry, we're off topic. While we're chatting here about signing day, Alex, anything else on Cal?
Nah, man, but yeah, North Texas will kind of stretch our legs, but Auburn, I want to see what we got. I'm excited.
That's gonna be a good game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with let's just say there'll be some phones being rung up in the Bay Area when Hugh Freeze comes in. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Protect your student body.
And even on Hugh Freeze for a second, look at his coaching record. He did revitalize Ole Miss, but his best season was 10-3. It's not like he was like maybe seen as sort of the a super whiz bang hire, but it may take him a minute to turn around Auburn. So at least we'll first test out of the gate. I think it'll be a good game, but I mean, like, I think we can with Spav, and I want to see some stuff. I think we can floor him. So it's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good one. We'll go Bears.
Yep. See you guys.
See ya. Thanks for calling in. Talk to you soon.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at all of how the Pac-12 schools did in as far as recruiting is concerned, as far as team rankings are concerned. And Oregon came in the highest at 7. USC's the next at 15. Then you got to go all the way down to 22 for Utah. 27 for Washington. See, here's what I'm thinking. This year, with the season they had, that Washington at 27 really is a big misfire, because if Washington wants to compete for the title of Pac-12 against Oregon, they are really going to step up their game. But they had a season to show that they could put together, but unfortunately they did not parlay that into any kind of recruiting momentum. And
I think we have a caller who may have some opinions about Oregon and some of the Oregon class today.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Is that Will ND?
It is Will ND. I am here.
Will ND, are you wearing green and gold? Are you cheering for the Ducks? Are you dancing around to shout?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Phil Knight's so important to Oregon. Just make him the coach. Like, what's he even doing? Just sitting there, handing out money. And with the whole
money's
Peyton
good in
Bowen,
Oregon.
With the whole Peyton Bowen thing, listen, if he would have just
did he actually sign yet today? By the way, I understand the ink was not dry on that. As of my last check.
The ink's not dry. But so last night, Peyton Bowen was in a Zoom call. Him and his mom were there. All the recruits' families were there, and all the coaching staff.
Notre Dame?
Yeah. And he said he would be signing with Notre Dame today. He said that to everybody, all of the families and the Notre Dame players that were signing, all the coaching staff. And to pull that little maneuver, they're pretty hot in South Bend right now with how this whole thing's going down.
Well, and Baylor, Austin Novosad has had 2 separate Baylor commitment moments.
Mm-hmm.
Including a whole recommitment, and then
that one's kind of our fault, but we can get to that later.
Yeah, well, I mean, you created the need for that, but I mean, what I mean, first of all, and just and we can dive into some more details though, but a bigger question of, at what point do you have an integrity problem? Or at what point is it still all a free-for-all?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the answer to that. I've been kind of today, as news has been going back and forth. I've been kind of wrestling about that, and I don't know. Unsure.
I think a lot of this stuff happened under the table anyway, and people are acting like
it's not. It has nothing to do with money. This has happened for a long time.
And last minute flips happen all the time.
Have always happened
too, and I think that people, some of the numbers I think are ridiculous, and I don't know if it's actually if we're touching on the money, I don't know if it's necessarily long term sustainable. Maybe
or necessarily accurate
forever. Or you're right.
One of the things that we're hearing is that there's a lot of stuff that
numbers.
Yeah, let's use Pat Narduzzi as an example, right? Because Pat Narduzzi has a history of just making stuff up.
Dumbass.
And we are told by people that know that Pat Narduzzi was making this kind of stuff up.
Yeah, there were Oregon
numbers made.
There were Oregon people taking an offhand tweet about Dante Moore, about us prioritizing him like a NFL first round draft pick, and they took that to mean that we were paying him, something like $10 million or something. And I'm like, you don't know UCLA football. Who
does he think he is? Cal?
We don't. Right. Exactly. That's a good one.
Only Cal gets to take that much money from.
In fact, they the truth of it is that they're he would have made more money going to Oregon. I would like to talk more about UCLA just as a football program and what the whole Dante thing means in terms of our chances of competing a little bit more than I thought we would. I don't know if now is a good time to do that, or if we wanted to talk more about the flips and the culture and whatnot. I kind of think that stuff has always been there, and the money has always been there. Maybe it's there's a little bit more of it now.
There's more,
a little bit more exuberance, and the transfer portal makes it even more crazy. But I also, it's rough because on one hand, I think there are schools that are definitely hurt by this, but on the other hand, giving agency to people and letting them make some money in the industry that's making a ton of money doesn't necessarily seem like the worst thing in the world when coaches can do the same thing.
Yeah, it's the funniest thing I ever heard about NIL, and I don't know how legitimate it is, but it's funny. At least it's funny. They said that the programs that just hit the ground running with NIL, meaning just popped up these collectives right away. It just shows you the programs that had a little NIL going, a little jump start, let's just say, on NIL and NIL networks. All right, I'm just gonna leave it right there. There were certain programs that from day one we heard about them. They already were paying their offensive linemen. Oh shoot, wait, where's D4? They're gonna pay their offensive linemen day one $50,000 a year, every lineman that came there, right? There were certain places that all of a sudden just magicked up these collectives and magicked up all this money just literally overnight. And it has always been there. I worry about the fact that all these churches in the Southeastern Conference, what's going to happen to all these donations to these churches now? Does anyone know how these churches are going to survive? I need to know. So,
I mean, in fairness, none of this is doing the Pac either. If you guys haven't read Roses from the Ashes by Glenn Seaborg, tells the story of the founding of the Pac, and it goes back to the end of the PCC and the creation of the Pac-12. And one of my favorite things is that he has access to all the secret memos to. You get President Sproul was the longtime imperial president of the University of California, and they have all the secret memos talking about all of the different Pac-12 teams, or PCC at the time, all the different Pacific Coast Conference teams, and the different ways that they were all paying their players. And this is going back to the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah, well, the esteemed Chip Kelly had a show cause for recruiting violations. I think that's actually part of why we have been so slow to adapt and play the high school game as much as I think UCLA fans would have wanted. is that I think that one, institutionally, I think we're going to be very, very slow and make sure we're doing it in an above board way, just because our school doesn't handle scandal well, and they've had them before, and also I think Chip wasn't dying to do it. One, because I think he thinks that he could put anyone on offense and score points, but two, like I think he didn't want to go through what he had already gone through at Oregon, show cause wise, and just wasn't ready to, like, jump in the water and play that game nearly as much. But what I will say from I'll just jump into it, is like the whole Dante Moore thing and us signing him and flipping him from Oregon. It was funny because I think last week on Wednesday, Tim asked me like, oh, what % chance do you think UCLA has here? And I'm like, oh, like 5 or 10%. And then each day things were coming out. And by Friday, I'm like, oh, this is like 55 or 60%, which like goes to show you how fast things can change in recruiting, right? But the bigger thing, and obviously it's a big get, and hopefully there's like a Pied Piper effect, and we get some more guys just because people want to follow a top quarterback. Who knows? But the bigger thing to me is that it actually showed, UCLA had some donors step up, individually to put together a competitive NLI offer. It wasn't like as big as Oregon's, but it was something to at least keep the door open. And then there's the other factors like the offensive coordinator going to Arizona State, et cetera.
I think that's huge.
I think that was the biggest factor, to be honest. Even more so than Bo Nix coming back, which I think adds to it. But because he'll have a chance, like Moore will compete for the starting job, and he very well might win it. But there are other guys like Garbers will be there, and that transfer from Kent State, is not chopped liver. He's not like gonna set the world on fire, but and I understand this guy's played for 4 years in high school and been great, which is different than DTR, who only played 1 year in high school before he started but DTR, people are like, oh, DTR started as a freshman, but actually that wasn't really the plan. It's like the plan was for Speed, or whatever his name was, from Michigan as a transfer to run the offense. He kept getting hurt, and so DTR kind of had to play. I wouldn't be surprised if Moore plays, but I also wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't.
I think he'll play.
I think he will too. He's he's like the best. He's the third highest recruit UCLA's ever gotten, ratings wise. But the more important, aside from all of that, the more important thing to me is just institutionally, it's a big. We didn't have a football collective until before this week. We had one for basketball that was started, but there wasn't a legitimate football collective until this week, and now there is. And it seems that both in the administration and even and on the coaching staff and institutionally, there's a bigger willingness to get on board and try to play that game a little bit. I still don't think we're going to be the Oregons of the world, and few are. But it's nice to know that we've gotten our act together, and we might be able to recruit. And it kind of says to me a little bit, where at the beginning of the year, Chip Kelly, I think, had one foot out the door, to be completely honest with you. I think he was hoping to have a great year, go to the NFL, or just move on. I think his wife really loves LA, and I'm hoping, and again, who knows, but I'm hoping with this NIL stuff and our I'm hoping there's a renewed focus on his part. He doesn't like recruiting, and he never has. But if we have some other people in there that can spend money on getting guys and let them do that, and we can make some other things happen, I think we're on the verge of. The rumor is we're willing to spend $1.5 million on defensive coordinator. We haven't done that ever. That's big boy defensive coordinator money. that's something that if you would have told me 6 months ago, I would have like laughed you off. Like, we've never spent 7 figures on a coordinator ever, much less 1.5 million. And that's the side of the ball that we really got to like take care of. But I've done enough rambling, but the main point being is that the Dante Moore thing is one that's exciting because you got a good quarterback, but player aside, it's exciting as a UCLA fan that the program might be in a better place overall than people thought it was.
Yeah, I think Dante's the best player in the class. I think he's going to be better than DTR his freshman season, in my opinion, just from what I've seen from him.
I would hope
think
so.
He's incredible.
DTR was not very good as a DTR wasn't good for his like first 2 or 3 years, but he also had only had 1 year of experience playing football and like quarterback in high school.
Yeah. I mean, I think he might be better than DTR now, in my opinion. I mean, that might be a hot take, but I really think he's.
Why you are very high on Dante Moore? What is
that's
it?
That's a lot.
Moore? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say. You talk about a 5th-year quarterback who was a pretty damn good quarterback. You're saying if kid right out of high school to be better. What is it about Dante Moore that's got you so excited?
I mean, to me, he looks like he's going to be like a NFL quarterback. I mean, he makes like all these crazy throws, and I mean, I know he's playing against high school players, but for me, like when I was extremely excited when we got him to go to Notre Dame. Like I was freaking out.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Believe me, I think he's an amazing quarterback. That's not my question. I'm just saying when you said better than DTR now, I was like, whoa, because I mean, because Chris forced me to have some respect for DTR. I actually had to look at him with a different light. I had to take my Trojan glasses off and watch DTR this year, and he was up until the last game he played second last game he played was really
the 4 interceptions didn't really help the cause, but
but before that he had really got his game going. So that DTR we saw today, there's not many college kids, well, if any, that I've ever seen come out of college are playing at that level. So that's all. That's why I should have questioned. Mm-hmm. But back to UCLA. Then I guess we're gonna tackle that. You guys, I'm not sure exactly what Chip Kelly's strategy is. I mean, I know it's big on going into the portal. I do know that, but off an 8-4 and then a 9-3 season where the 3 losses were competitive losses to good teams, and I've got you guys winning your bowl game. What is going on? I know, so I get it. He doesn't like to recruit, but doesn't he have other guys on the staff that want to maybe at least go do a couple of visits?
We haven't signed a corner for 2 years in a row.
That's
out of high school. Out of high school.
That's not good.
You guys only have 13 commits. 13 guys signed today.
Is that just the high school kids?
That's just the high school kids. So 13 kids. Right. You have Dante Moore as a headliner, clearly in any class. Then they got Jeremiah McClure, who's from that other modern day up in Chula Vista. And then let's see, another receiver for your force. Then the rest of the guys are
and that's kind of what the class looked like.
Lower.
That's kind of what the class looked like before, and that's kind of what the classes have sort of been. The joke on like the UCLA boards forever was that like, we're trying to like, it would always be like we'd offer a kid and we'd look at the other offers. It'd be like Colorado School of the Mines and like two Ivy Leagues or something, and it's the names we weren't like jumping in the big kid pool with anyone of note, right? And he's always typically been slow to offer. I mean, the fact that we have like 13, if that's just the high school guys, I think the idea generally for him is to take like 13, 15, 10, even some years out of high school, and then like 10, 15 out of the portal. And I mean, it's interesting because on one hand, you're like, you want the talent to win. And I think we definitely need to infuse talent on the defensive side of the ball. But you look at like what we've done developmentally with some guys. I mean, granted, it's more likely when you have a bunch of walk-ons and a bunch of low star guys, but like Dulcich, walk-on, NFL, Joshua Kelly, initially preferred walk-on, transfer, NFL. Like we've and our last like
I'm
4
with you,
running
Chris, but
backs.
That's 2 diamonds in a rough. You can't build a program off of 2
Oh
diamonds.
no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's always better to have talent. And you'd always want more talent than not. And as someone that's like, you know, kind of been a detractor and saying that the roster, I mean, I've told you and everyone else before that like next year was going to be fine, but there's a chance that the roster going into the first year of the Big Ten is so dismantled and awful that we are just bad in our first year in the Big Ten, and we would have been bad anyway. But given the way things have developed over the last few weeks and the way it seems to be going now, it doesn't seem like it's going to be as like dire straits a situation as it could have been 2 years from now, because it does seem that, like you need talent. The talent that we were getting the first 3 years overall as a whole was not good enough. We did run a lot of people off, and if you're playing like selling Chip, you say, well, he's built the culture and he's doing the books and ball thing that he wants to do, and he has the setup that he wants, and now you start infusing the culture with talent. If you take the like Chip is a joke, angle, you're like, the first 3 years were the worst 3 years in UCLA football history, and there's no reason we should ever be that bad, and there's no reason UCLA can't recruit at a top 20. It's never going to be like, Moore might have done it 1 or 2 times. We're not going to be like consistently a top 10 or 15 class kind of school, but there's no reason we shouldn't ever be like, top 25 or 30 at the worst. And some years we pop it and things go well, and you peak into the top 10. But like, I forget we were rambling. But yeah, no, I think that the things that people didn't like about Chip Kelly and how he was running things early have at least signs of switching. There's a lot that has to change still. And if they're changing now, it's not going to be reflected in this class, right? It'll be reflected more so in the next class, because even though we did flip Dante, we don't have an infinite pocketbook, and we're not going to flip like 10 guys at the last second that we haven't talked to all year. I don't even think that would be Chip's style, to be honest with you, in terms of like just going out and getting highly rated guys that he hasn't watched and they haven't spent time with. I know that like he knew who Dante Moore was, right? I don't think anyone thinks that we'll be better in the Big Ten. I think that we have been down our first 3 years. I think that if we are functioning as we should, I think we're like a Wisconsin.
And real quick, guys, we'd love to hear from you guys. What did you guys think about the Pac-12 signing day today? What do you think about the Bulls coming up? We want to hear from you guys. So we don't have as much of an agenda tonight, and we're not going to go, a million hours, but we'd love to hear from you guys. So we'll put the link in the chat as well, or you can just use the QR code that's right there. And we'd love to have you guys call in and chat.
Yeah, just back on that point though, TBM. I just remember that we had Bob Toledo and you had guys like even Jim Mora. I mean, some of those recruiting classes were a lot better, and I just don't know how you can be competitive going into the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, and our teams were good, and yeah, like those.
There's a lot of talent.
Those the Mora linebacker group was like ridiculous. Between like, I think we had a team. The problem is that we had a bunch of talent, and we should have been better on the field with the talent that we had than we actually were. You have like Zumwalt, Anthony Barr, Miles Jack, like like all.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, now that you have now that you have the development and the coaching, it's just a part of it. And you guys, I'll leave it this way. There's nothing you can sell me on, or Chip Kelly could sell me on the fact that they're not doing better in recruiting, being in Southern California.
They should be. I completely agree with you.
30 miles on that campus alone, just grab some of those guys And I was just looking through the recruiting class, and I just going like, it's like I just don't understand that.
I completely agree with you.
A school like UCLA as well. You know what I mean? It just blows my mind.
It should definitely be better than it has been. And I think the first 3 years of terrible results on the field didn't help anything, in the same way that it doesn't help season ticket sales, and it doesn't, like a bunch of people drop season tickets. Like the first 3 years were worst 3 years in UCLA history on the field. And, you do that 3 years in a row. I don't know if you're a 4 or 5 star guy in Southern California that wants to go play like premier football. You're not necessarily like, oh yeah. I mean, understand it's UCLA and we should be doing better than we were. But there were like a lot of reasons why, if I'm a kid, I look at that and I'm like, that doesn't look very good.
And all right, and let's guys, while we're chatting here, we've got Dr. C has called in to chat about what's going on. Dr. C, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Good.
I'm hanging in there.
I just logged on, so where are we at in conversation?
We are chatting, or right now we're just chatting about signing day today.
Yeah,
and all the new classes coming in. What is your take?
Well, one of the things I pointed out to Mark, I called earlier to the show, was how I found it a bit boring in the presentation, as far as I was watching like 247, and nothing was happening. Everyone's already signed. So there wasn't all these kids, I was waiting for, the presentation with the hats and someone grabbing a hat and I'm going to so-and-so and then flip. That was.
Yeah, are you a fan of that?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the whole spectacle.
Okay.
I'm not a fan when my team gets put on one head and then off the head and then another hat goes on the other head.
Yeah, no.
Can I give you guys a very unpopular opinion?
I know.
Really?
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I don't want a kid who wants to do that. I want Tackett Curtis or Arch Manning or Malachi Nelson, where they're like, it's not even happening. Like, they know where they're going to go. It's been discussed. It's planned. It's done. Like the parents write a nice little thing the day the kid signs it. Like today for USC, they just locked in a phenomenal class, and it was utterly boring as snot. And I was 100% living for that.
It wasn't really the kids, Tony. I think this all began with like the rivals and 247, all those guys and all their insiders. They say, hey, listen, don't tell anyone who you're going to go to, and we're going to make a big deal on our sign day. And
I'll be honest, Big Dave Uiagalelei just seems to me like a walking NCAA violation waiting to happen. Like, if I know that your dad likes to be called Big Dave, then your family is too involved in the recruiting process, and like, give me Coach Curtis.
Well, there are going to be those.
Did DJ sign with Hawaii yet, by the way?
I don't know. I mean, the two things. One, the NCAA doesn't do any recruiting violations anymore. Clearly, obviously, that's just done.
Clearly.
Right? So that's done. But
like I said, unpopular opinion. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind.
No, I'm with you. I'm somewhere between what your take is. I would love to have that, right? But as a football fan, as a college football fan, I think that a bunch of people got together and said, hey, how can we make this really fun, exciting day? Like, I literally used to take, I hope none of my past employers are watching. I used to take days off, right? That was the first, I can't remember. Was it the first Wednesday in February? I can't remember what it was, or the second, whatever the hell that was. I would take that day off every year because I'd be up all the night before on the chat boards, just having fun, joking around. And then the next day, you just get up in the morning that the faxes were rolling in at Heritage Hall, and there were updates on Ryan's USCfootball.com site. It was just a really good fun time. And the whole hat show thing, that was just a bunch of like, I was a big fan of that.
I need to put a disclaimer on that. I guess I misspoke. I didn't clear myself. I really like when my team has an absolutely uneventful time and already knows all of its recruits, but I really did enjoy watching a few of the meltdowns today.
But that's the part as overall as a fan.
Maybe that makes me a bad person.
I don't think anyone wants to see the some guy do that, grab the hat and grab the other hat thing right to them. No, nobody wants to see that. But but it was something.
Unless it's Notre Dame and Oregon and everyone else's hats being thrown to the ground, and they can go, haha, because we already signed our guys.
Back in the day, there would be this huge lull between
Sorry, Will.
when the bowl games would get over, the very beginning of January. Hold on, let me finish my thought. Jesus,
Finish your thought.
Thank you so much. There's this big lull between the beginning of January and then spring ball kicking off. And you know what that wonderful time was? Right in February, we would all find out what our Christmas presents were in February. Now it's so boring and so clinical that you're right. All these guys with NIL, it's all their NIL deals are all locked in. So all the top guys were all done months ago. Lawyers signed off on everything and they're ready to go. I mean, not technically, because I know they can't, but that's why it's changed everything. And I think it's kind of a loss to college football because, I mean, I know I'm not the only one out there that used to love that National Signing Day was almost like, it should have been a freaking federal holiday for a lot of us college football fans because so many of us took that whole day off just to watch the spectacle that some people don't like.
Tony, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, Tim, this was the first time I'm on vacation, and I remember it'd be on Wednesdays, and I can never watch it. And they're like, at 10 o'clock, this kid is picking his school. At 12 o'clock, at 2, it was an all-day thing, which just it was a blast. And now to just see it, I mean, they were stretching. I mean, they were just like going on tangents because there was literally nothing happening. But I brought this up with Mark as well. Do you remember when that kid faked his signing day?
Yeah, I heard you. Actually, I heard your whole chat with Mark. Yeah, I heard that stuff. I mean, that goes toward more like I would lean towards Tony, where just like the absurdity of it. That I think it became like a reality show, or became just like this like freakish like. Remember the guys had the shirts and then hats. They had 2 hats on, a couple of shirts.
Yeah,
I mean, that's when it got stupid. I wasn't for all the gimmicks and stuff. I liked it when you didn't know who was going to, which class was this, and literally all day long the top classes were flipping. People were moving up the board, moving down the board, and then boom, we found out the winner at the end of the day when all the faxes were in. I like that. I'm kind of with Tony and some of the people in the chat and other people. I didn't like the whole gimmicky part of it. I thought that became almost a caricature of itself. But I did like the biggest thing is it's not the fact that we have it still a little bit now, but right now we have like bowl games going on. We got a ton of stuff going on. Why do we have to do it now? Why not move it to February when there's absolutely nothing going on? No coaches are getting ready for bowl game prep and stuff like that. It's just its own little entity that gets between the bowl season and between spring ball with this fun time in February.
Some schools are on quarter system and have to get their star freshman quarterback early enrolled in January in Westwood. So we can't do it in February.
Yeah, well, that's life.
Hey, I mean, obviously Oregon, probably the biggest winner of the day, right? Hands down with like these flips and getting these last minute folks.
Their class is awesome.
Yeah, Oregon had their spatula out today.
My question was, I know Tony and you, Tim, are really familiar with this. I hear that Oregon's facilities are maybe the best in the country. How does USC's facility compare to Oregon's?
Yeah,
so USC's facilities, I'll tell you, will always be behind of people because it takes USC literally. I mean, just the reality of building in a place like downtown LA or Manhattan is that you are generally you have to plan construction 10 years in advance, like minimum like 8 years in advance. Versus Oregon, there's actually an entire theory of campus design, and this is campus architectural design called the Oregon Experiment, and it's all about like not doing long-term planning and actually just like sort of like building things as you need it. And the University of Oregon is in the woods. They literally can be like, let's build this thing and start knocking down trees. USC has to start. I was on the 30-year plan of the architecture design committee when I was an undergrad. And I mean, they're still building like the buildings that were put together in our plan 30 years or 20 some years later, because it's a 30-year plan. So the thing is like, as far as like, building space, USC is always going to be behind. but they're in LA, so in other ways they're always going to be ahead.
And also,
So
you realize the cost of building in LA is a hell of a lot different than the cost of building in Eugene.
Yeah, 5 or 10 times, probably
Right.
5 times the construction price.
So, and then, so Oregon, we talk about the best. I mean, I don't know. I guarantee you, I've seen University of Georgia. I've seen Ohio State. I mean, Michigan. I don't, maybe 5-10 years ago, they were like space age technology had everyone, but everyone's caught up, probably even past them though.
I mean, and they're all ridiculous. You guys have seen Dion in the Colorado facilities are spectacular. I mean, everyone has great facilities, but the thing is today with all of the money and the marketing money and the NIL money and stuff like that is that your stuff needs to be good enough, but like a third red waterfall isn't going to convince anyone to do anything.
Are there universities that have like a whole marketing and media to tell a recruit, hey, listen, they know that this is a marketing era. We can pretty much, your Instagram make you bigger than life. If you come here, we have a whole team set up for you.
Yeah.
Is that a recruiting point?
That's USC's model.
Oh,
So
yes,
fact,
but the thing is, it has to be separate from the school.
And how do they do that? How do they do that? How do they get past that, or how do they?
Well, they have like for example, USC has a marketing partner. I mean, just use USC example. Different schools, they have collectives. Some of them have marketing partners. Some of them have different sort of like kind of like a super PAC. It's like a PAC versus a politician. Like it's technically a separate entity. It's a little bit siloed because the school is not allowed to directly provide it. I'll tell you, there's actually some really good YouTubers, Colin and Samir. If you guys follow them, they're just like really interesting folks. And they talked a year ago when NIL became legal about like how could athletes really embrace content creation. And there's a lot of room for, Dion has his son do it. But there's a lot of room for genuine content creators to create content for athletes, like marketing content, and help it really become big. There are other things that they can do. I think, is it the Pac-12? Does the Pac-12 do this? Or I forget, some schools do it where like they actually get this, athletes can get the YouTube monetization revenue from their.
I think the Pac-12 lets you have the Pac-12. I think lets you have any like rights to highlights or like game like in the same right. Like you don't have to like go through the rigmarole of like getting your IP rights for that. Something
like
and then
that.
Like a couple of other things on the legal notes because I know a little, not a lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be mansplaining this. We literally have an attorney with us.
No, I mean I'm not an NIL lawyer. I don't know, but I've talked to someone that is a little bit. Like I don't think you can even technically have it be tied to playing games, right? Like they can't be tied to any of that. So like there's different ways that these things will do stuff. Like, they might have the obligations that are tied to making the money and getting your checks for doing the certain advertisements or signings or whatever, like be located in the county of where the college is, right? Or they might, there's some of them that I've heard, which sounds absolutely crazy to me. It's just a blanket, like what, like a check, and it's a blanket sign off of your NIL rights to this like group that can do whatever they want with them, which is like, that seems absolutely absurd to like just be giving away your entire brand. I mean, hopefully there's approval rights in there or something. If that's the case, I feel like down the road you're gonna see like, some kids in some ads they might not necessarily want to be in, and that being a bit of an issue if it's as broad as that is. But yeah, to the overall point, yeah, the schools can't technically be involved, and there are different interesting ways that they try to tie it to the location or whatnot. But I think there's already even been examples. I forget who it is. I think someone had an NIL deal and he was like transferring the next year or had to sit out or whatever. And I think he like would come back to where he had to do stuff to do it, even though he wasn't on the team anymore, so that he could get paid. I wish I knew the name and the story better. I kind of fumbled that a little bit, but but yeah, that's why you hear the talk of like certain schools, I think, being a little bit slower to act in terms of setting up these collectives the way that other schools kind of did it immediately and just went Wild West with it all. Because I think they were trying to get a better lay of the land legally of how to do this without running in front of it. Because really the whole idea of it, right? And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think in an ideal world, none of these kids are getting money the day they sign out of high school, right? They like
before they sign, yeah.
Right. They go to school. They go to school, and then, you know, like the way that I envisioned it when I first heard about it, right? It was just like a guy balls out on the field and a bunch of companies want him to advertise for stuff, or he might sign some footballs for some people, which that even gets sketchy with boosters and whatnot. But like the way that it's turned out with the sign, because it's not technically supposed to be pay for play, right? And people have found out clever ways around that.
I think it was for the kind of the O'Bannon situation, right? Which you should be very aware of. It's like he's getting his name laid on a video game and say, "Hey, dude, I know you're saying that's not O'Bannon, but it's my number, it's my jersey color, it's my face. I mean, that's me, and you're making all this money off of me." And so the name, image, and likeness thing, I agree. I thought it was going to be like so kids could get jersey sales, right? So if you're going to sell number 13 in the USC bookstore, number 13 is be getting a percentage of that every one you sell. Right. And things, I thought that's what it was going to be about, but like everything in football, it gets twisted around. And because you have a paper tiger for the NCAA now, who's terrified of their own shadow, and the fact that you have you would know more about this than me, but the legislation is different in each state when it comes to NIL. So how do you balance all this stuff out to one NCAA regulation on how this stuff's going to be handled? Is going to be a complete mess. And we're just talking in the USC chat. I'm saying USC literally, I mean, as much as people like to make fun of USC, we don't even have a booster collective.
No, they do not. USC does not have a booster collective.
And
that's insane.
And going back to the original thing that Dr. C was talking about, that's what USC does have going.
Tim, and then finish this thought, and then we need to move on. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
The whole thing that you're talking about where you have the guys setting each other up with marketing is exactly what they're doing at the Boulevard USA and some other schools, which is completely in line with what it was supposed to go down like. And unfortunately, you can try to play the game, or you can do and be ahead of the game like a lot of other places are doing, or get left behind. I think we're seeing that in USC's recruiting cycle this year, is the fact that they're doing that instead of doing a booster collective, which is doing very well on signing day. And one last thing, if I'm in a hurry, you were also talking about you having your facilities. There's a certain amount of, you can only build so many things before you start getting those, diminishing marginal utility on just each new thing you put in your little so you add a third story, a fifth story. At some point, the kids don't care. If you have top-notch facilities, you don't need to have the best. You just need to have, standard, good quality stuff.
Well, I
think you're right in that.
And I'll let you
go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. C. Now we need to move on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, last thing. I think about also like the female athletes for the other sports. Like there's those there's like these blonde twins from Fresno State who transferred over to Miami. And the
Carpenter twins are awesome. They're awesome girls.
Oh, there you go. So they were talking about how these girls right before NIL would be making millions off of their image and likeness, right? So they already are bringing the marketing, right? They are the marketing. But how are the athletes, the women can, I guess, and there's that gymnast, the blonde gymnast from LSU, and that's making millions. Are they doing that? How are is the athlete being offered the NIL, or is he having to create the NIL?
So there's not a simple, not to interrupt. There's not a simple answer to that, right? And first of all, when you talk about being offered millions, like what does that mean? So one of the big things is that there's a huge difference right now between sorry, Robbie, we're gonna get to you in just a sec. Let me just finish this, and then we'll get to Robbie. There's a huge difference between the pay for play collective stuff that's going on right now. There's really three categories to think about this. You guys in the chat, do you guys want to hear details about this? Is this like useful? There's three
I'm
categories.
interested. I don't know if they are.
Okay, there's three things that happen. So the first category is the pay for play stuff. Think about that like Tennessee, right? We'll just pick on Tennessee. Where Tennessee is just like writing checks, like you come play for us, we'll write a check and give you money
in McDonald's bags.
Yeah, in McDonald's bags. Now it's very legitimized, actual institutionalized money going to people. The second thing is genuine marketing, and this is what USC does. So, for example, Jordan Addison is literally working with United Airlines on marketing endeavors. Caleb Williams is working with Beats by Dre on marketing efforts. USC has marketing deals right now. So all of USC's signees today had playlists on Apple Music, like legitimate Apple Music marketing promotion stuff going on. This is all legitimate promotion stuff. The third piece, and this is where like your twins come in, is content creation. So just like, I don't know, pick your TikTok star of the week. I'm blank. I don't follow the TikTok stars,
Mr.
but your Insta characters, your those folks that are legitimately making money off social media and content creation. That's another revenue stream. And I mean, some of these athletes, like Caleb Williams, for example, or actually not Caleb Williams, he's a bad example. Will Levis, can make money from all three of those. But those are three very different revenue streams and very different silos of money that people have coming in. I'll give you actually an example. There's a Florida State diver, Aiden Faminoff, who had this huge social media following, like right before it became legal to monetize, and like had to like demonetize his stuff because the NCAA was like, you can't do this. Today, that kid would have made a fortune because he could have been monetizing, but he's creating content. And this is like Colin and Samir. You guys, if you don't follow Colin and Samir, they have a great show about a great channel all about content creation. And so this is where guys can actually create content and make money from that content. That's different from this, Tennessee pay for play. And it's different from the real marketing stuff that USC does, for example, with Jordan Addison and folks like that. So those are all very, very, now there's, like I said, there's some overlap in that, but those are three different revenue streams. Now, if you're, for example, a women's golfer or a volleyball player or what's his name, Lucas Meeks, the Washington soccer player, you're not getting paid millions of dollars to like come play for the team. So your money is probably coming from like, actual legit endorsement deals and from content creation. Like that kid's like big on YouTube, that kid's big on Instagram. And those can actually be real stuff. Jason points out here, this is a great example. And he's right, and this probably sounds sexist. We're not being sexist, but like women have an easier time making money on social media and like, let me, pose in fancy stuff. I mean, how long is it going to be? And we'll assume it's non-sexual, but before athletes all have OnlyFans, before you're following the Caleb Williams OnlyFans, and it's like inside the life of Caleb Williams or, something like that. I mean, those are going to be real revenue opportunities for student athletes. And then real quick, sorry, Robbie, we didn't mean to go on a tangent. And we've got Robbie waiting to chat with us. Robbie, welcome to the show.
Tony, that was actually quite insightful. I was always I'm kind of at the, you're speaking old things that don't ask, don't tell thing about NIL. I don't really want to know, or I kind of just, as someone who knows what it's like to be on a scholarship back in the day, I'm just really so happy for these kids now that,
and me too. I think it's great.
It's so cool. I mean, we have to, scalping our 100 points at the union to everything, but it's so
Well, and Robbie, I'll give you an example.
The picture was on the pizza box with me, at the same time. So.
Yeah, but I'll give you an example of something that I think is also a huge thing, especially at a school like USC is a great example of this. NYU is a great example of this. I guess they really asked, but you should hire their kids. But content creators, right? So like, there are kids at USC in the film school, for example, who literally are training to do this for a living. And so, like, if you are Caleb Williams, like, you don't have time to like learn to make YouTube videos and like craft stories and do video editing and choose music and all that. Like, these guys literally should be hiring kids to do that for them.
Well, also, I guess the access to the top equipment to do that and produce that is there at SC or free and access to, and hence that can be hopefully very fortuitous for us
in the Spielberg building.
Yeah, Dr. Dre's names that around there. This might help a little bit, but see. I wanted to see because I wanted to as you said, someone who likes signing day always thing, and I don't want to get the names. I'm not here to name drop or anything. I don't care about recruiting. I look a lot more, or I don't care, or I follow it. I don't care if what your ranking is, or Corey Foreman's a prime example. I thought undersized when the second I saw him. I still think he's undersized. I would actually think of moving him to Will or see if he could actually do something with pass coverage. Because
Robbie, yeah. if I asked you who's the 5-star, who's the 3-star, I said Tuli Tuipulotu and Corey Foreman. I asked you which one's the 5-star, which one's the 3-star, which one are you picking?
Like I'd say I wouldn't care. I want 49. I just that's not. I think things that stuff works itself out. So that's why I don't get excited about it. But in the National Signing Day in February, there's nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else to get excited about. Go ahead. Yeah, get excited. Who cares? There's nothing else. But right now, there's bowl games going on. There's things. There's injuries going forth, especially the thing now because. I really hate the kids don't play in the bowl games, but I assure you, if they were a family member of yours, you wouldn't be letting them play either. And so I think that and just I don't know if this takes away from that or this being both of them. I think it's like I posted in the chat. I think they made too much of a production of signing day at the first, and grown adults getting mad at 16-year-old, 7-year-old kids for not acting like a kid on television and not picking their hat, and it just. I just think I got now you want 2 of them, I don't, and see everyone get excited. I mean, how many Texas A&Ms this year alone do you have to see to go, man, this stuff is not something that you jump up and down about. And but anyway, but just in the future with the transfer portal and both these signing periods, do you think you're going to see more of like, for example, like Chip Kelly, like say, who always said he doesn't like to recruit. I always say, well, his teams look like they do all right to me. I surprised UCLA gave him the time, but I'm glad they did. Just for the state of LA's sake, or I think it's better when both universities are better for our just LA, Southern California, or SA as a whole. It's or I don't know. I understand why the Big Ten wants UCLA's basketball rights. I get that. So I just do you think that you're going to see, like you said, like coaches that strictly to say, hey, I'm not taking a chance no more. We're doing mostly portal. Like I think you're going to see Dion do, or see how he can coach when he actually doesn't have superior talent against or do you think it's going to be still the Saban, the Kirby Smart? Because that's the other thing about this. The Saban I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I'm of the opinion that there's really only 4 teams that can win it all every year. And the 4 of them is because they have the maximum of probably 15 to 25 players in the front 7. And there's probably 30 of those players that make a difference. And the team that has 11 or 12 of them, or instead of 8 or 2 of them, is the one that's going to win. That's just how football really is done when you get right down to it. It's still a physical thing. That's why Oregon can never beat an SEC team. That's why Pete Carroll's teams did. It's just when you can't match up front, it's never gonna matter. It's no Georgia and Michigan are gonna play because they are both matter up front. No one's gonna and actually,
so and they still
play defense. It actually still works if you do it.
On the recruiting question that you had between the like the portal and like high school guys and what people's different methods will be. An interesting stat for you that I saw earlier in the week is of the playoff teams. There's like Ohio State, Michigan, and Georgia each only had starting for them 0 or 1 transfer, and TCU had about 6. I think the ultra elite teams and I think the ultra elite upside is still going to come from high school and locking that kid down early and doing that. And I think that for the most part, the transfer portal is a supplement to high school recruiting, but I still think that the best schools that you're talking about and the elite ones that are, always the same name every year because they have the best kids, are still going to be those schools doing that in the same way. And the transfer portal is a great way to supplement talent. And you already saw it like this year. Like you saw it this year with SC bringing an influx of Caleb Williams and Addison and all of that stuff and immediately turning things around. But I think long term, in terms of getting like super high, and maybe some schools will be able to pull higher end transfers more successfully, but there aren't really, if you talk about like the uber elite players out there aren't that many in the portal. Not everyone can, use the port. There's like winners and losers in the portal, right? And there's not enough bodies, despite the fact that there's like 1,000 kids in the portal, right? There's not enough like super high-end talent that you are going to go out and you can supplement a great team with it, but you're not going to go out and win a championship in the portal. That's my thought process.
Going off of that, for example, Cal's 84th right now. I think they have about 10 recruits committed. Can they be competitive? I know they have until they have more time to sign players, but can you save? Can you be competitive? Can you really potentially fight for a Pac-12 title if you're 84th right now with the recruits that are left?
No, but I think you can force. I think you can force UCLA to send you a few of theirs, right?
Yeah, that's in the Regents deal.
UCLA like 5 of their players.
Dante Moore starting 2 games for Cal next year. That's why Plummer transferred.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good question. And guys, we got to move on to Jeffrey in just a minute. Robbie and Dr. C, any final thoughts?
No. Here's the I'll just let you guys go with this one. Thank you guys so much for having me. Utah.
We're glad to have you. Thanks for calling. We love having you guys.
Utah's always like in the 40s as far as class ranking. I think they finished like in the top 25 for the first time, I think maybe ever. How exciting is that? I mean, and can we see? It's really going to be interesting to see having a 25 ranking compared to a 40 ranking class. Hold on. You have to stay with us for a minute because you just reminded me of something that I have. Hold on one sec.
Well, Tony pulls that up.
You guys answer him while I pull this up.
The other important thing is getting excited about class rankings is important, but like class construction is also important, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can have higher rated classes that are loaded at like one position.
Yeah, that was Kelly's problem a bit. Like whenever we had a good class, it was
super highly rated, but they might not have any linemen, or they might not have there might be still like huge holes on the roster.
He's talking about Helton and USC is what he's talking about right now. A bunch of skill players and no guys in the trenches. But
when you have 18 wide receivers,
and Kelly had a lot of guys in the trenches, but no skill players.
But
And
to
that-
your general, point, Mr. C, like obviously it's exciting to have more talent, and more talent is better than less talent. And I don't think Whittingham is the kind of guy that would have like totally changed his approach to the kinds of kids that he wants to bring in. So I don't think it's like you have to worry about like some kind of culture change at Utah because you're like sacrificing something to bring something in. I think that's the spot where Utah is probably pretty dang happy and probably should be excited of having a better class than they're used to having. Go ahead, Tony.
Speaking of Utah, John Wilner had a little reminder for us today. Real quick, tell me what you guys think of this, and then we'll move on.
When was the last time Utah or Oregon State were in the playoffs?
They're in the Rose Bowl the last 2 years.
Yeah, I know, but my point to Wilner is that yes, yay, woo, they might win the Pac-12, but unless it's proven. I mean, let's look at this. There's right this year, there's Georgia and Alabama, really Alabama, and then everybody else. Alabama.
Yeah, how many times has USC beat Utah in the past 2 years?
The Alabama has 8 or 9 5-stars, something fucking ridiculous, right? And then there's everybody else, and that's why you see these teams that it's kind of like a thing. Maybe what see it in the playoffs this year. Thanks for coming, thanks for playing, and then you have this team that has just this elite NFL level talent that just wipes the board. I think that Utah and Oregon State have done amazing things at developing, finding guys that fit their system, and like Chris was talking about, getting the guys you need to fill spots that you're thin. But they're never good. These teams are never going to even sniff the playoffs because you cannot play at that level without the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right. Well, I mean, I agree with you, but at the same time, I think that he's making a really solid point that we are missing in a lot of this National Signing Day hand-wringing and angst and stress, in that having the right Jimmies and the Joes is better than having some random, you guys know, I think that the recruiting sites are basically just like the stalking of underage teen boys. And I'm not sure that like Scott Schrader has any idea whether these guys are any good or not. He certainly doesn't have any idea where they're going to go to school. So,
yeah,
all right, sorry.
Well, no, I'm with you. I mean, if you want to win your conference, again, looking at these guys, Oregon State was a quarterback away from winning the conference. Utah has been consistently strong the last 2 or 3 years and playing just really tough, good football. But if we put even the best Utah team that Woody,
I don't think that's at all. I don't think that's at all what he's saying, though.
You can have good. You can have good teams. You can have good teams with lower rated talent, but if all else is being, it's both. And you can have good teams with lower rated talent by having a great evaluation, developing and fitting scheme the personnel, like this tweet says. But I guarantee you, if you ask Whittingham or Jonathan Smith in a room where the answers don't get out, and you could tell them, if you're telling me neither of them don't want like SC or UCLA's quarterback or their rosters, like of course they do.
See, this is a comment that I think is absolutely what's wrong with this, and it's why a lot of these teams don't win. Utah being class of the pack with a bunch of 3 stars.
That's silly.
Who cares what kind of a look it is? If you win the game, you win the game.
No, yeah, I mean, signing day shouldn't be.
Texas A&M has all the like fancy people in the world, and they can't win games. Yeah, it's not about a look. Who cares about a look? It's about whether you can win the games.
Yeah, right. You don't win any games for what happens on signing day, but
not a game.
But it also.
By the way, sorry, we weren't picking on you, commenter. We were not picking on you. We love you. I was just using. There's so much of that. I was just using that as an example. We love you, by the way.
The only outliers I can think of would be like a Clemson and maybe an Oklahoma, right? But the rest of the national champions, right, that over the past God knows how long, they have top 5 classes almost every single year. Am I wrong? So it really is. It depends on what level. If we're talking about, hey, do you want to be proud of your team?
Yeah, I think the point is we're not talking about that. We're talking about all the teams that are winning signing day and not winning games.
Yes, that exists too. I mean, that's Texas A&M. That's like that. There's 2 ends to the sword, right? It's like it's the whole thing of like what's necessary and sufficient to winning football games, right? Or to like be
Yeah.
excited to be
I
an
don't think
elite
Alabama's the
football
comp
team.
here.
Well,
So-
here's another thing to throw in.
And then let's
Think of, like-
move on. We got
Okay.
Jeffrey waiting.
All right.
Go ahead
I
with
was
one
just
more
saying-
thought, and then we got to move on.
What about those coaches like I'm thinking of Wisconsin with those 40 ranking, also with the very low ranking on there, and then being very successful, but then it obviously ran out, right? We came to the point where it wasn't. I mean, I don't think is his name Chris? I always mess up his name.
Yeah, Chris.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he any less of a coach than he was before? Or was? Yeah. I mean, what ran out, right? Because he was developing those players. They're being competitive, and then all of a sudden, he's no longer there.
Yeah. All right, Dr. C,
All right.
thank you.
Hey, thanks again, guys. I'll call back
Good to have
another
you.
day.
Yeah, Dr. C.
I'll
Talk
hound
to you
you
next
guys. All right, thanks. Bye.
Robbie. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, we were going off there. Sorry, I didn't mean to stretch you out. Any final thoughts?
There's no Tony. You and Tim, I've been watching you guys all year.
Oh, thank
Really
you.
good.
We're glad to have you.
Part fan of the show. Will, indeed, God, you're a good kid.
He's good. He's good people.
Yeah, no, he is. All right. Will, indeed, I have family all in St. Louis and all up and down Joliet County. You look just like all my cousins. So. And sound just like them too. And I actually would love to talk to you later. I think Notre Dame is college football, and Notre Dame's important. And I don't like this area where Brian Kelly just says basically I can't win here, and that's not cool, man.
That was a cop out. And Robbie,
Yeah.
yeah, make sure you call back. You're please call back anytime. Love to
We
talk
love
to you.
having you.
We'll talk the matchup for the game and say we can do an over under on how many thirds and tens the defense will give up. So
Yeah. Hopefully less this year. Hopefully less.
all right, love you, fellas.
Hey, love
Hey,
you,
Robbie.
Robbie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for calling.
Please.
All right, that was fun. Thanks, Robbie. And guys, we've got here we'll do our last caller of the night. We've got Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports and the new Young Guns channel. You guys do some great stuff. Jeffrey, welcome to the Pac-12 Chat Show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, the recruiting rankings. To your point, Tim, I agree with you 100%. What you're saying about how you have to have a lot of talent to win titles, and I agree because, to the guy's point you had on screen, it's really impressive what Oregon State and Utah have been able to do with less. And you're a fantastic coach when you can win with less talent. But if you want to win the whole thing, you can't with 3-star players 99% of the time. In this day and age, you have to be Alabama or Georgia or potentially what USC can become. Oregon's recruiting like crazy right now. I mean, they're still a little ways off, but you have to have a lot of talent and great coaches to win. Because if you have poor coaching and great talent, you're not going to win. And if you have no talent and great coaching, you're not going to win. If you got it's just whatever. You have to have both great coaching and great talent. If you don't have the talent, if you don't have enough of it, you're just not going to be able to win at the highest level. Like you said, you can maybe win a conference championship at the most, especially if it's not in the SEC or the Big Ten. But again, you have to have both. So I think that's a great point on both angles of that argument.
Jeffrey, what did you think of Oregon signing class today?
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, they're killing it.
They killed it.
Commits. I mean, that is just insane. 3 5-stars, 15 4-stars, 10 3-stars according to 247. I mean, that's a loaded class. I mean, you would think that USC would get the best class right now with Lincoln Riley. I mean, they got a fantastic class as well. 3 5-stars in their own right. They've got a fantastic class, but Oregon killed it for sure.
All right.
Yeah,
Hey,
Oregon,
let me get your guys' opinion on something.
All right, go ahead.
So we've been hearing from certain corners of the country that the Pac-12 is just in trouble. I did some math last couple days. And we looked, actually, I thought, well, let's look at some numbers. And it turns out that on like things that matter to the universities, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are kind of in a class by themselves, followed by the ACC, followed by the SEC, followed by the Big 12. Does this look like a conference that's in trouble?
And I mean, there aren't there rumors about Amazon. I mean, I don't know what's true and what's not, right? But aren't there rumors kind of circulating about Amazon being like very, very serious about picking up the Pac-12?
Yes.
Where they might, they might end up still making more than say like the Big 12. I mean,
they'll probably make more than the Big 12 and the ACC.
That's good.
So, yeah, and have better reach than with the Pac-12 network.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the
I might have to explain to my dad how to stream on Twitch so that he can see, Thursday, Friday night football on the computer or whatever. But I'm sure we can figure it out.
And I thought this was interesting. This is actually, and now so the Big Ten is just in a world of its own. But this is just, if you look at just the Pac-10 here, the 10 teams of the Pac-10 do almost as much research as the entire SEC with 16. And again, this is, I mean, the thing is, when
Pac-12 is not in trouble, you're right. They're not a conference in trouble at all. They're, the academics are insane in both conferences. That's why when a lot of people were talking about teams, potentially joining the Big Ten or something like that, like from the ACC, you can say the academics don't make sense. For sure, that I've always completely agreed that what the Big Ten and the Pac-12 do in academics is insane. They make so much money, and
it's ridiculous.
If the Big Ten, all the teams put their money into their athletics programs like the SEC does, I mean, they would dominate football. Same with the Pac-12, but they just put more into research, as you point out.
What happens if you throw, Tony, do you know what happens if you throw like SMU and San Diego State onto the Pac-12 total? Do they end up being on
higher? The Big 12 total? So SMU and San Diego
on the
State
Pac-12
don't actually.
Total. Yeah.
Oh, if you threw SMU and San Diego State, they would pass the SEC.
Gotcha.
Just barely though, because they're not huge, but they're certainly growing. But I'll tell you what's kind of interesting here is you hear a lot of like silly nonsense about like Arizona. If you look at this, Arizona and Arizona State both do more research than anyone in the Big 12. In fact, they do as much research each as like half of the Big 12.
It surprises me that they do more than Utah and Colorado, to be honest. I would have got that wrong if you quizzed me.
Especially ASU. ASU has like kind of a weird history with the AAU, but ASU's like numbers and metrics like exceed most of the AAU. And they're, ASU's a great school. Like people don't give it credit. They don't give it enough credit. And look at Washington sitting there at $1.5 billion. Washington, Michigan, and Michigan are like the top two, and along with, Penn from the Ivy League and Harvard. So
with ASU, is the issue with ASU is that their acceptance rate is so low? Is that why people give them crap?
Yeah, and historically, I mean, they were sort of like they be considered like a big party school, and ASU has a very high acceptance rate, but they do phenomenal research. Like it's a phenomenal school, and that's part of like the mission. The thing about ASU in West Virginia is that like they've been given a mission by the state, and they accomplish that mission, but they're great schools in the process. So, I joke with folks, you hear it like, especially if you follow like some of the conferences on Twitter, like they're really obsessed with like, oh, this is 500,000 more. And I'm like, do you see the B on that? That B does not stand for b-thousand. It stands for billion. So like some of these conferences, they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, guys, it's not b-thousand. That's billion.
That's why a lot of people were kind of surprised that Nebraska went to the Big Ten because, as you see on the graph, they're the least. They're not in the AAU. They're the only one that's not. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, again, to your point, I mean, Washington, that's insane, man. The Pac-12 is really good in that.
Yeah, and Cal. The other thing about Cal is that Cal gets a little bit shorted too, because like most of these schools have a medical school, but Cal's medical school is UCSF.
Mm.
And if you added UCSF to this,
Yeah.
and if you added like Lawrence Berkeley Lab to this, Cal would have more than Johns Hopkins.
Mm.
So, and by the way, Johns Hopkins, who they play their Division I sports in the Big Ten, and they're like really proud of that. That's like a really big deal to them. So we have every team here with their primary Division I conference. So Notre Dame's actually in the ACC. I think they're either the one after Florida State or the one after that. They're pretty identical. I forget who all was there, but Notre Dame's right there, and Notre Dame's in the ACC. So anyway, and to Dave H, why are they talking about research? Because research matters to football tremendously. And if you don't think so, then you're in the wrong conference, because to this conference, it matters tremendously to football. And plays a huge role. I mean, as we looked at just a minute ago, we look at like donations. Look at annual giving, and this is very related to football because most of these teams use football as the events for the annual giving. And if you look at like the Pac-12, the average Pac-12 school has $345 million a year in annual gifts. The average Pac-12 school is sitting, paying for their school. That those gifts are helping subsidize an average endowment of $4.1 billion. And a core academic budget of $2 billion, versus like the Big 12 schools are $0.9 billion. Chris Madsen, research is money. Yes, research is money that goes to the school. So that's, again, all that, that like this is why like UCLA, I mean, it's the athletic department. Yeah, they're losing $10 million. They're losing $10 million out of a $5 billion budget. UCLA total budget is not just, this is core academic budget is about $5 billion. UCLA total budget is over $9 billion.
If research didn't matter to the conferences and football was the only thing that mattered, then Oregon would be with SC right now in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
And let's look and take a look at it. This is one of the things people don't understand. Look at Oregon. So Oregon is an AAU school, but it is the very last in the Pac-12. Oregon's what 120 million or something of research a year.
Are the Beavs pretty ahead of them?
The Beavs are like triple University of Oregon, yeah. And that's partially because science, they do more of like the sciences and engineering and stuff like that at Oregon State than they do at Oregon. But yeah, the Beavs have way more. Wazoo has way more. CU has like 5 times as much as Oregon. So yeah, that stuff matters to the Big Ten. Look at that little tiny Oregon sliver, and then look at the Big Ten. And then that's where that's a huge issue for the Big Ten. That's why they're not in the Big Ten. I like that. I'll go, as usual, UC Region Gumby gives us good info.
Mm-hmm.
UCLA is not really 100 million in the hole. UCLA owes that money to itself because they've chosen like to overbill themselves for things, and they've chosen not to count other money. So like, take that. Nebraska should be out. Nebraska, as it says in the chart, Dependent Fanatic, as it says in the chart here, Nebraska is not AAU anymore. They're the only Big Ten school that's not.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier, I thought I was really surprised that, that they even made the move to the Big Ten, because academically it doesn't make as much sense. Because, I mean, they got booted from they got booted from the AAU right after they joined the Big Ten.
For kind of a crummy reason, in my opinion.
It was.
Because I have a lot of people that talked about North Carolina and Duke, and people will say to me, like, "Why? How do they make sense go to the Big Ten?" And I'm like, "Well, the academics make sense. I mean, because the location doesn't, the football, doesn't make sense because they're not very good in football, but the academics does. So for sure, I mean, the academics actually plays a bigger role in sports than a lot of people think. I didn't even think about it until a few years ago. Obviously, when you're little, you don't really think about money and stuff like that, but it does play a part for sure. I mean, this graph is really spot on for sure. I think it's really interesting that the SEC, doesn't do as well. I mean, because they could, any school could do better in academics. They just choose not to.
Well, Jeffrey, though, look at this chart, and what do you notice about this chart and the SEC's expansion strategy?
Yeah, Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, they're
And A&M.
and Texas A&M is at the
and
top
Mizzou.
there. I mean, they're in the better ones, I guess. I mean, that's the only reason Vanderbilt's even in the conference, and I've always thought because of academics.
But if you look at this, one of the things I always joke with people that the SEC is the conference that pretends that it doesn't care, but it totally does.
That makes sense.
And to Dan, who's asking, see what it is when they're gone. These are the new conference. If you look, USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten in this. So this is looking at the Pac-10, who's still, triple the Big 12, almost triple the Big 12, and even with 10 is almost as big as the SEC and almost as big as the Ivy League. So go Pac-12. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, we are at 2 hours. So as we hit this point, any final thoughts? Who wants to start? Jeffrey, you want to start?
Thanks, sir. I mean, I think that, the research stuff's really cool on, again, showing a different angle of football and how it's not always about what's on the field. It's what's off the field on the campuses. It makes a difference. And on the recruiting rankings, I mean, it's showing that the Pac-12 right now is doing really well in recruiting. I mean, USC is dominating, they're doing really well. Oregon is just blowing it out of the water. Fantastic recruiting class. I mean, that's unbelievable. And then you see Colorado, Deion Sanders. I mean, not at the elite level right now, but he's getting some players there in the transfer portal and the recruiting rankings. The Pac-12 is doing pretty good. A lot of the powers, that in the SEC and the Big Ten had a lot of great recruiting classes as well, but the Pac-12 did pretty well too. And it's going to be very interesting to see it with bowl season. I didn't really talk about any of that because you probably talked about it earlier, but the bowls games coming up, see how the Pac-12 does. I think they're going to perform really well in a lot of these bowl games, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me here.
All right, Mr. Will ND.
I am very bitter with the Ducks on what they've done with Peyton Bowen and Jalen Lamar, but it doesn't take away.
Is he signed yet, or what is happening there? I know
we don't know. We just don't. We don't know. No one knows. No one knows except people. Like my dad's theory is that Oklahoma and Oregon are doing a bidding war right now over him, but who knows what's going on. But I do think the Irish did actually recruit great players from like every position. So we will be back. We are improved. We will be improved this next season, even though we did lose some big players. So definitely excited for the future of the Irish. But it's a hard pill to swallow with what's going on with NIL. Like even with our collective, it's nothing compared to what Oregon and Nike have.
Yeah, Oregon's killing it. Hey, thanks for calling in.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. TBM.
Thanks to chat, and thanks to you guys. Thanks for the callers. But thanks Tony and Tim for dealing with me while I'm a little under the weather here. I appreciate it.
Get healthy.
I look forward to next week, getting into the thick of it with the last 5 games, or was it 4 at that point? I guess it's 4. That'll be really exciting. And talk a lot of football. We got 4 games starting on. The Oregon game will be kind of, I think, on probably while we're talking. We'll see how that's going, and then hopefully the Ducks get their 10th win. I think they will. I think it's pretty certain that both Oregon teams will have 10 by the time the season's over. But yeah, no, I look forward to next week talking a lot of shop, talking about a lot about what's on the field. Signing day is fun. Signing day is is exciting. You like following rumors is fun, but it's nothing compares to the games on the field. And I look forward to that. So again, yeah, thanks everyone, and look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Wait, Chris, before you go, what was did we cover Rick's pick? I mean, I know that he picked.
He had both Pac-12 teams.
But what was his?
Oh, he has all Pac-12 teams. I don't know what his points are.
Cody, do you have it?
Yeah,
He sent it to us. I think he had them. I think he had.
Well, we'll let him tell us next week.
Yeah, I think he had Oregon to
fine.
win. He sent
We
it
have
to
it.
us.
We have it on paper
receipts.
somewhere. Yeah, we're
We
good.
got receipts. We miss Rick, by the way. We miss our
Not the same
LBC.
without Rick. I love you too,
Not
but
the same. We gotta have him back.
we need LBC here, man. For me, I just want to make sure we also remember. Speaking of LBC, he wanted Connor Johnson. You're not out there somewhere, so if you watch this, maybe on I don't know, on video record. Rick wanted to tell you just how awesome you guys did in that game, dismantling the SEC and putting them in their place. So he asked me to let you know, just and all of us really here on the Pac show, just that the Beavs kicked the crap out of the SEC. Let them tell any stories they want. You guys crushed it. So well done, Beavers in the crowd. And then really, I'm just excited. Again, thank you guys all for showing up. I'll keep it nice and short. I am really excited. I'm really bummed out though that some of these teams like Washington, like Oregon State, I don't think Oregon State's even in the top 50 in recruiting. I need these teams to really, move this success they're having into getting some recruiting going. And I think that's going to happen eventually. But great season in the Pac, kind of just a bit of a disappointment across the board, except for Oregon and recruiting. I mean, I think USC probably had a couple misses with a couple big linemen they were in line for, but we do need these teams to start recruiting better. All in all, great season for the Pac.
It really was. And real quick, we've got a super chat from Eddie Chase. Eddie, thank you for helping support the show. Eddie is not an Alex Grinch fan. Tim, I'll let you answer this one. I think that Alex Grinch actually did a phenomenal job in getting our really horrific defense to play a lot better. I think that we'll certainly see a lot next year. We're stocking the defense with players, which is what we needed to do. So yeah, I'm not as worried. What do you think, Tim?
I think fans. So I'm assuming you're a USC fan, Eddie. I think you are. Here's the situation. Did you watch USC football last year?
What was so bad?
This isn't a Jesus water and wine moment. Do you know what I mean? He's not gonna be able to do a miracle. I love every Trojan from the no star to the 5-star. I don't care if you put on the uniform. I love the walk-ons. I love everything. I would love to meet any walk-on. This is not to trash any Trojan out there, but the quality of player that they have. Let's put it this way: the entire line, the starting defensive line, were all 3-stars. All of them, even Tui Pelotu, 3-star. You guys don't realize that. What Nua did with that line was amazing, right? And we had 7 3-stars on the, I'm going off the 247 rankings. We had 7 3-stars starting in the lineup every game. And you're asking, for these defenses, this and that. Overall, when we were healthy, they played pretty good defense. Absolutely. There's a lot of growing room. Now he'll have what last year's, that was really even his class, but he has a full class plus all these guys are bringing in. I do like a lot of the players. We'll talk about that later on. The players that USC is bringing in, but I think you're asking too much in 1 year for a turnaround. So sorry, it was longer than I thought it was going to go, but the word's out on Grinch. And then Leonard, if you get him, you grab him anytime you can. I just don't think he's available to come to USC. And I don't think that Lincoln Riley's going to just cut bait, and because you'd have to fire your coach. You'd have to go after Jim Leonard, right? You can't just,
and a couple of coaches.
You know what I mean? You have to. It doesn't work that way where you go, hey, let's see if we can get him. We'll keep Grinch, and then we'll see if Jim Leonard, see if he's interested. I don't think you do it because the coaching community is pretty small, and you can't run it that way. You have to fire your DC and then go after a guy. And I just don't think that they're ready to do that at this point.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Hey, I just want to thank you guys. Here at the holiday season, we want to thank you guys for all of your help and support. Everybody who calls in, everybody who watches, everybody who chats, and most importantly, Tim, Chris, LBC, Mark, you guys have been a gift to us, and you've been a gift to me, and I can't thank you guys enough. So as we get here for the holiday season, and we look back at the old year, we think about the new year. I think it's exciting, and this has been a fun endeavor, and we are truly lucky and just phenomenally blessed that you have all joined us for it. And so, Tim and Rick, love you guys. Thank you so much. You guys mean the world. Also, thank you for keeping me updated on recruiting today. But most importantly, everyone, have a happy holiday. Whether you're a Pac fan, whether you're an SEC fan, whether you're an ACC fan, we know all of you guys are out there watching. We love you all. We love having you. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday with your families, whichever holidays it is. And we'll see you all next week.
And happy birthday to Rick's daughter.
And happy birthday to Rick's daughter. And by the way, Rick, pretty great dad, as I know a lot of you guys are as well. Fight on, guys.